your movie recap in a flash. We bring the drama, the action, and the twists in minutes. In the future, the United States of America was destroyed due to a severe drought, and people became willing to kill for water. Most of the population left the country, but the Holm family stayed because the father, Ernest, was convinced that crops could grow again, even without water. Ernest remembered when the land was green, but his son Jerome could not recall such times. One day, 2 thieves tried to break into a small building on Ernest's farm by burning the lock. Ernest caught them in the act and fired at them, killing one of the thieves instantly. The other begged for mercy, explaining that someone had told him there was water in the building. He also claimed he needed to use the bathroom and reached into his pocket, but Ernest saw the gun and shot him first. Jerome witnessed everything from afar and offered to help his father, but Ernest only told him to call him Dad instead of his first name. Later, Ernest opened the small building, which turned out to be a well. Unfortunately, the well was dry, so they had to continue their journey without water. Along the way, they encountered the Watermen, a group of people monopolizing the distribution of water extracted from deep wells through a deal with the government. Ernest traded them goods and food in exchange for water. Jerome realized it was best not to upset these people because they were more dangerous than they seemed. Ernest also repeatedly tried to convince them to provide water for his farm, but they demanded exorbitant amounts of money. On their way back, their donkey fell and was severely injured. To end its suffering, Ernest shot the donkey, which made Jerome cry, though he swore he would have done the same. When they returned to the farm, Ernest's daughter Mary served them a meal and washed the dishes using dirt from the ground. Ernest listened to the radio while Jerome drew animals, their only hobby. That night, Ernest heard a noise and went outside to discover that Mary had escaped through the window to meet her secret lover. The next day, Jerome and Ernest went to Sam's auction house to bid on a robot known as Simulate Shadow, or Sim, to replace the donkey. Sam's son, named Film, competed against them in the auction, but Ernest won, though it left him heavily in debt. Afterward, they visited the hospital to see Catherine, Ernest's wife and the children's mother, who was unable to walk due to an accident. The hospital had a special machine connected to her by a wire to help her walk. The only way to bring Catherine home was to buy this expensive machine. After spending some time with her, Ernest and Jerome returned home. On their way, they saw Ruby and Suzu with a baby, whom they considered to be exploiting their child to gain sympathy and money from others. Ernest avoided them, but later returned to give them water. The couple had been considering selling the baby because they could not afford to raise it, but Ernest advised them against it and promised to help with water. Film later came to the farm and turned out to be Mary's secret lover. He asked to borrow the robot Sim, promising to pay rent, but Ernest refused unless Film's father signed a document. Film was upset by the demand and told Ernest he would never be able to irrigate the land before leaving angrily. Ernest and Jerome later met with the Watermen and used the robot Sim to demonstrate its efficiency. Ernest tried to convince them to agree to a deal to install a water line for his farm. He also began digging to uncover an old pump for the Watermen to inspect. While working, Ernest advised Jerome to go out, meet a girl, or at least make some friends, but Jerome preferred to focus on his family. On their way home, they saw Film speeding by. At the farm, Mary was washing clothes by putting detergent in the vacuum cleaner. Ernest arrived and forbade her from going out again, which angered Mary. She told him she was old enough to make her own decisions, but when Ernest swore he only wanted to protect her, Mary told him she hated him and loved Film. She then tried to run away, clashing with Jerome and asking him for money. This gave Ernest time to catch up and stop her. Mary cried, accusing Ernest of failing to protect the family. He locked her in her room and broke her window. Later, Ernest and Jerome woke up to find that Sim had been stolen. Ernest suspected Film and went to his house, but Sam informed him that Film had left the area that morning, heading to the mountains. It was revealed that the farm used to belong to Sam, and that Film was obsessed with the land he had lost, even though Sam believed the land was unfit for farming and that water would not help. Ernest then went to the mountains to investigate, but was suddenly struck on the head and lost consciousness. At night, he woke up in the watermen's camp, where they accused him of stealing their equipment using simulation. Ernest denied the accusation, but their leader, Caleb, beat him. A fight broke out, and Ernest, feeling his life was in danger, stole Caleb's knife and seized a gun, firing into the air to scare the men away. He fled, but Caleb continued to threaten him. On his way home, Ernest found Film sleeping by a fire with Sim nearby. Film had stolen the truck and equipment to make Ernest look bad. Ernest waited until morning, woke Film with a gun pointed at him, and tied him to Sim, who carried the stolen equipment. Under the scorching sun, they walked to find the watermen. Film provoked Ernest by talking about Mary, so Ernest pulled him down as punishment. Both men eventually became extremely thirsty and could not endure it any longer. Film allowed Ernest to stand so they could drink, but the equipment contained alcohol, not water. Ernest, an alcoholic, began drinking the alcohol, while Film pretended to drink and revealed that he had stolen the truck to survive. Film offered Ernest money, but Ernest refused, doubting his story. Ernest tried to get up, but the alcohol made him dizzy and unable to move. This had been Film's plan all along. Taking advantage of the situation, Film hit Ernest with a rock, causing him to hit his head on the stones. Bleeding and unconscious, Ernest began to recall Catherine's accident, which had been caused by his drinking habits. When Ernest eventually woke up, he found himself, the text translated into English, tied in a film where Sim wakes up drunk and screams like a madman. Then he goes to a movie about the farm, and Mary joins him to escape together. Jerome worries about Ernest, so he decides to look for him. When night falls, he finds Sim in the camp of the watermen. They tell him that his father died in a car accident. When the funeral time comes, Mary returns, and the siblings scream together. They also visit their mother to tell her the bad news. Film takes them in his car, saying he will take them home, but Jerome refuses and prefers to walk. Jerome stops the car and asks them about Ernest. Film tells him that Ernest is dead and warns him to stay away from them. Film says he wants to help them, but Jerome drives him away. At the farm, Jerome starts beating Sim severely out of anger. Film intervenes to stop him and explains that grief is difficult, but he cannot let it ruin their source of income. He promises to help the family. Jerome is also shocked when Film tells him that Mary is pregnant. Film has big plans for the farm, and Jerome agrees to give it a try. In the afternoon, Film takes equipment to the watermen and asks Caleb to install a water pipe on the farm. At first, Caleb refuses, but Film suddenly holds him responsible for Ernest's death because Caleb's gun and knife were found with the body. Fearing the consequences, Caleb immediately agrees to install the water pipe on the family's land. A few days later, the new entrance is officially installed. Film works hard all day to plant and grow the wheat, which is irrigated with sprinklers. Now the family can enjoy a real shower. A few weeks later, Jerome is surprised to find a small note on the ground. In the end, the land is covered with beautiful plants. To celebrate, Film and Mary decide to get married officially and tattoo each other during the party. Film drinks and cannot stop thinking about Ernest's death. A few days pass, and Sam arrives at the farm with 2 men from the bank. It turns out that Ernest had huge debts, and they want Film to pay them. Film takes the horses in his cart to appear tough. Sam hits him and explains that no one ever wanted to buy the land. Ernest had it only because he never left, but thanks to the water and crops, the bank can now sell it. So, Film must pay now if he does not want to lose it. At night, Film puts Sim in his car and takes Ruby with the baby, pretending they are just checking prices. Film sells the baby against Ruby's wishes. Ruby panics and demands they take the baby back. The buyers shoot and kill Ruby. They try to shoot Film too, but he fires back while escaping, leaving the car behind. Sim is injured in the shooting, and the damage triggers a mode that makes her return to the original factory. The next day, Film pays the bank with the baby's money, but tells the siblings that he sold Sim to Ruby. At that time, Sim arrives in the city and is discovered by the people who created her. Calvin finds the owner's information and calls the farm. Jerome answers the phone and starts to suspect something, so he rushes to the local market. He finds Film talking to Suze, who is holding a doll in her arms and claiming it is her baby. Noticing this, Jerome tries to talk to them, but Film quickly takes Suze away. Later at the farm, Jerome asks Film about Ruby, but Film tells him that Ruby took poison and abandoned his family. Jerome is determined to uncover the truth and announces that he will visit his mother. However, he takes a bus to the border. The guards do not let him pass because he is a minor without a guardian. At that moment, Anna approaches him and offers to help him cross for a fee. Jerome agrees, and Anna puts him in a truck full of chickens. Within a few hours, the truck arrives in the city, and Jerome sees it for the first time. He returns with Anna, who takes him to the factory, but only takes half the money. She explains that the trip was a trick. He does not need a guide to return, because no one will stop him. Before she leaves, Jerome asks if she has met someone named Ernest, but Anna does not remember the name. Later, Jerome meets Calvin, who explains all the functions of the device. It turns out that Sim's eyes are cameras designed to capture the terrain for reforestation and record everything she sees. Calvin teaches Jerome how to use it and leaves him alone. Jerome feels overwhelmed with emotions when he sees his father again, but his feelings turn to horror when he realizes that Film killed Ernest. It turns out that Film tied Ernest to the car and sent it toward the Watermen's camp, making it look like Sim lost control and accidentally dragged Ernest to his death. Jerome collapses in the middle of the office. At night, rain falls on the farm. For the first time in over 10 years, Jerome rushes back and tries to act indifferent. He asks Film how he got Sim back. Film is confused and checks the barn, shocked to find Sim standing there unharmed. He says Ruby must have returned her out of guilt. A few days later, Jerome visits Catherine and sincerely promises to take care of her, as Ernest did. One day, Film and Jerome go hunting to keep animals away from the crops. Film misses all his shots and hands the gun to Jerome, blaming the weapon for being faulty to cover up his failure. Jerome has a strong urge to shoot Film, but instead kills a deer, proving that the problem was Film's aim. When they return home, Jerome hides the gun in his room. At dinner, Jerome says he received a call from Ruby and is looking for Film. This provokes Film, who reacts angrily, accusing Jerome of lying. Mary scolds Film for his behavior, and Jerome insists he is telling the truth. Film storms out of the room in frustration. The next day, Film receives a letter from Ruby, but in reality, it is from Jerome. The letter asks Film to meet Ruby, because there is a problem. Before leaving, Film looks for the gun, but Jerome tells him he took it for repairs since Film had said it was not working properly. Film is forced to act normal to avoid suspicion and apologizes for his outburst at the dinner table. After taking a knife, Film goes to the rocks with Sim and calls out for Ruby. Suddenly, he falls into a hidden pit and breaks his leg. Film screams in pain and asks Sim for help, but she does not understand him. At that moment, Jerome appears, looking down at Film while holding a rock in his hand. Film realizes that the boy knows the truth. Desperate, Film begs Jerome for mercy, but Jerome ignores him and walks away, leaving him to suffer under the scorching sun. Eventually, Film starts screaming again, pleading for help and asking Jerome to think about his sister and the baby. He talks a lot about accidents and regret, making Jerome so angry that he shoots Film and kills him. When Jerome returns home, he makes Mary believe that Film abandoned her and does not tell her how Ernest really died. Thanks to the money from the crops, they can finally afford real food, and the siblings agree to stick together. They will buy their mother's machine from the hospital so that Catherine can live with them. Jerome then deleted all the videos from the robot Sim so they could start their lives anew. And that's the end of the movie. See you in a new summary. Thank you for watching.